Fluorescent lights flickered off the polished table as Angela Wood's legal team shuffled nervously. Papers, pens, iPads, all that expensive stuff. Right before their faces went about 3 shades lighter. I'll never forget the look on Angela's face, either, when my attorney strolled in, not a hair out of place. She'd been running the show for months, swinging that HOA president badge around like a queen's scepter, terrorizing folks for leaving their garbage cans out a little too long or, God forbid, daring to plant sunflowers instead of hydrangeas. But that morning, she realized her so-called reign was about to come to a screeching, humiliating, and very public end. And all because she'd picked a fight with the one neighbor in Willowbrook Estates you probably shouldn't mess with. Name's Matthew Miller. I'm a litigation attorney. Used to be a shark, downtown, eating high-stakes corporate bullies for breakfast. 20 years of that, and I just wanted to wake up somewhere. Quiet, get my hands in the dirt, maybe forget what a courtroom smells like. Bought a modest colonial on Maple Drive, right on the edge of the neighborhood. The first few months, it felt like I'd finally made it. Garden thriving. HOA fees reasonable. Nobody banging on my door at midnight. Peace at last, or so I thought. Let me back up a sec, because Angela Wood wasn't your average nosy neighbor. Nah, she was the self-appointed sheriff of all things lawn and mailbox, and she had a real talent for sniffing out violations. First it was my tomato plants, of all things. Left me a violation notice, section 4.2, apparently, because my plants were supposedly too tall. I double-checked. 3 feet, not 4. I called Sarah Jackson, the community manager, poor woman. Always caught in the crossfire. She apologized, said Angela measured them herself, and insisted I was over the limit. I trimmed the plants, shrugged it off, told myself to keep my head down. You know what I mean? Don't poke the bear, just be neighborly, all that. Except, with Angela, the bear comes looking for you. Next up, 3 weeks later, my rose bushes were suddenly a visual obstruction. Then it was my mailbox, 2 inches too far from the curb. Garbage cans visible for, get this, 37 minutes past pickup time. My car parked a little sideways in my own driveway. Every violation came with a $50 fine and a snotty letter about property values. And it just kept coming. One Saturday, I figured, let's be adults. I walked to Angela's door. Tried to talk like neighbors. She didn't even let me finish my sentence. All HOA business goes through proper channels, she said, then shut the door in my face. She ran the board meetings like some small-town dictator, never letting anyone question her. The other board members, Ralph and Deborah, sat there looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Sarah, bless her, was sympathetic but powerless. Angela reports it. I have to enforce it, she'd sigh. By late summer, I'd racked up more than $800 in fines for stuff that barely made sense. It felt personal now. Angela started taking pictures of my house from the street, building a little case file. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get more ridiculous, a process server shows up at my door with a lawsuit. 15 grand in damages, plus attorney fees, and she wanted a court order to redesign my landscaping. Under her supervision. I sat at my kitchen table, papers spread out, blood boiling. 20 years in the trenches, I knew bullying when I saw it. Angela thought because I was quiet, I'd just roll over. That was her first mistake. The next morning, I called my old law partner, Noah. He laughed, said, "You realize you're the most qualified guy to handle this yourself? But it's never smart to represent yourself, not really." So, we did better. My old firm would take the case. I'd consult, and Angela would find out what it's like to go toe-to-toe with the best in the business. First thing I did, documented everything. Every violation, every photo, every letter. Pulled up the HOA's own rules and meeting minutes. Even did a deep dive on Angela. Found out she'd pulled this stunt before, at her last condo association. 2 lawsuits, both settled. She had a pattern. Single professionals, retirees. Anyone who didn't fit her little cookie-cutter ideal got the Angela treatment. Kevin Stewart, my lead attorney, brought his team to my house. Ruth specialized in HOA law. Mark did document discovery. "This is harassment," Ruth said, going through the stack. Kevin found Angela's surveillance photos, time-stamped, multiple angles. Every single day, Mark shook his head at the lawsuit. Angela claiming my tomatoes dropped property values by 15 grand. "Not just wrong," he muttered. "That's sanctionable." Kevin's eyes lit up when I mentioned her previous lawsuits. This is bigger than an HOA spat, he said. We're talking civil rights violations. Ruth started calling neighbors. Turns out, Angela had driven out a retired teacher for having too many colors in her flower garden. A divorced dad because his kids left their bikes out. A young couple with a non-conforming mailbox. Each story, the same pattern, petty violations, fines, threats, and eventually, people just gave up and left. But I wasn't going anywhere. Our countersuit hit like a hammer. Harassment, selective enforcement, abuse of authority, civil rights violations, emotional distress. We asked for damages, punitive damages, legal fees, and a permanent injunction to boot Angela off the board. Angela called an emergency meeting to rant about my frivolous lawsuit. I sat in the back row, watching the board squirm as she railed about conspiracies. When she finally let me speak, I calmly laid out the facts, her violations, her personal vendetta, her abuse of power. The room went silent. Ralph and Deborah demanded to see her files. When they saw the lack of real evidence, they threatened to vote her out if she didn't drop her suit. Angela, being Angela, doubled down. Hired a big-money legal team. Argued she was immune as HOA president. Kevin just grinned. That's an admission of using her power for personal grudges, he said. Meanwhile, I kept digging, following the money. HOA boards have rules. Community funds aren't supposed to pay for your lawyer or your buddy's landscaping company. Or consulting fees you pay yourself. Angela had burned through nearly $30,000, all with flimsy board approval. Not criminal embezzlement, yet, but gross abuse of trust. We amended our case. Added breach of fiduciary duty, asked the court to freeze the HOA's accounts, demanded a forensic audit. Angela went nuclear. More violations, my house numbers, oil stains on my driveway. Light fixtures. She was handing us more evidence with every angry letter. The twist came when Sarah Jackson, the community manager, finally decided she'd had enough. She told our team that Angela had ordered her to find something every week just to drive me out. I want him gone, Angela had said. Sarah gave us the smoking gun. Angela's last stand? She called in city code enforcement, hoping they'd find something, anything, to nail me on. Evelyn Lopez, the city inspector, spent 3 hours going over every inch of my property. She found nothing. No violations, no noise, no garbage, no shoddy wiring. But she did find something else. Angela's complaints were clearly retaliatory. Evelyn included that in her official report, sent it to the city attorney. Future complaints from this address will be scrutinized for abuse, she wrote. Now, Angela started showing up in person, trespassing on my yard, tape measure in hand. I caught it on my security cameras, called the police. The officer explained, patiently, that HOA rules don't override the law. Angela argued, got a formal trespass warning. Her lawyers begged her to stop, but she kept going. Eventually, they quit, filed a motion to withdraw because Angela wouldn't listen. She hired new lawyers, but by then, the judge had set a trial date and denied any more delays. At the next HOA meeting, Angela tried one last trick, proposed a $500 special assessment to cover legal fees. Residents erupted. Ralph, quiet until now, stood up with a folder. How about you explain the 30 grand in unapproved expenses first? Suddenly, the whole room turned on Angela. The board voted her out, hired an independent accountant, and settled the HOA's side with me, cleared my record, paid my fees, promised new policies to stop this mess from ever happening again. But Angela, she wouldn't give in. Her lawyers tried to settle, offered money, an apology, even her resignation. I said no. I wanted real accountability, a public apology, restitution, a court order banning her from HOA leadership, and an admission she'd abused her authority. She'll never agree, her lawyer said. Then we'll see you at trial, Kevin replied. In court, Angela fell apart. Under oath, she admitted she'd never cited other residents for the same violations she hounded me about. Couldn't name a single rule I'd broken, except that I'd challenged her authority. He needed to learn there are consequences, she said, right in front of the jury. Her own testimony sealed her fate. Sarah Jackson testified, so did Ralph and Evelyn the inspector, along with other residents. Story after story of Angela's intimidation and selective enforcement. By the time I took the stand, the jury already knew who the bully was. I told them how all I wanted was peace, and how standing up wasn't just for me, but for everyone who ever felt powerless. The verdict? Swift and brutal. 25 grand in damages, 50 grand in punitive, every dime of legal fees, and Angela permanently barred from any HOA leadership or contact with me. Her face went pale. It got worse for her. 2. The audit found more financial irregularities, got referred to the DA. The real estate board started their own investigation. The community reformed. New rules, transparency, an actual appeal. Process, term limits. For the first time, Willowbrook Estates felt like home. Angela sold her house, moved out of state, couldn't stand the stairs. The irony, her crusade to drive me away drove her out instead. What did I learn? First, bullies depend on your silence. Second, document everything. Third, abuse of power always leaves a trail, just follow it. And finally, standing up isn't just self-defense. It sets the tone for everyone after you. So, let me ask you, have you ever dealt with a petty tyrant, whether it's a boss, a neighbor, or someone running the HOA? Did you fight back? Or did you bite your tongue? Drop your story or your thoughts down below. Do you think justice was served, or did Angela deserve worse? Don't forget to share this with someone who might need the courage to stand up. Sometimes, all it takes is one person who refuses to be pushed around.